And on the platform, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, Minister Mthethwa, thank you.
Thank you, Program Director. Thanks, Mas Chaba, the Deputy Minister of Sport, Arts and Culture, Ms. Mafu, the Director General of the Department, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen. It's exactly 2 weeks since our last engagement on the 3rd of August 2020, where we assured the nation that we will provide continuous updates on our relief plans for the sector. Since then, we have been working tirelessly to conclude all the processes relating to the first wave of COVID-19 relief fund and to streamline the second wave of the funding process. I must say that the next leg to this would be looking at the recovery plan broadly of the sector. And we also take note of the announcement made by the President last night, particularly about him referring to level 2 restrictions. It is important to note that we still need to remain vigilant in order to protect ourselves and our loved ones and those around us. Hence, we must continue to wear our masks at all times in public spaces. We should continue observing hygiene protocol, including washing of hands and sanitation. The new announcement under level 2 still prohibits the sector from having no spectators at sporting events and cultural activities, including hosting international sporting events. In relation to concerts, entertainment events, and cinemas, only 50 people are permitted. The same restrictions will apply of late to gyms, sports ground, and public swimming pools. Beaches and public parks will also be open to all activities. On the relief fund, the first wave, and that wave was not without its challenges. Due to the lockdown, many applicants were unable to fulfill the requirements of the criteria set on the open call. The following are some of the challenges experienced whilst implementing the first wave. The non-compliance of applications due to failure to submit the required documentation such as bank statements, tax certificate, proof of cancelled events and other gigs, lack of access to ICT centers, as most of them were not operating during the lockdown period. Lack of readiness of the department's IT system also posed some challenges. Issues of language was also raised as one of the areas we needed to look into going forward. Now, on the rollout of the second wave relief fund, the department will be rolling out 2 processes to implement the sector relief. The first process will include the relief for athletes and all technical personnel in the sports sector, whilst the second process will focus on arts culture sector relief. On sport, it is important to note that on the sports side, the same process used in the first wave will apply this time around. Applicants who are eligible to apply will include athletes, coaches, technical support personnel, and freelance fitness instructors or practitioners. These are applicants who rely solely on income generated from participating in sport competitions, in events and in fitness activities who operate as freelancers. Only applications who are South African citizens as per Home Affairs official definition will qualify for the relief. Applications for this category of people should be submitted to the applicant's respective national federation. Only applications from fitness instructors or practitioners must be submitted to a portal on department's website. When submitting to federations and sport entities, the federations and sport entities will provide the first line of assurance. These entities will sign off with a recommendation and send all recommended applications to the department for further processing. On the exclusions for sport, registered businesses and employees who work in such businesses may not qualify for this relief. They are encouraged to explore other relief interventions available within government, particularly the Department of Employment and Labour, sport personnel with other sources of income, and those who are employed or on a fixed-term contract do not qualify for the relief. Athletes on fixed-term contracts, these are athletes catered for in terms of contracts entered into with either the federations or the clubs. Sport personnel who benefited from the first wave relief or from any other provincial relief fund do not qualify. It is critical to note that any provision of false information will be treated as fraud and dealt with through appropriate criminal justice system. On the compliance of compliance documents for sport, all applications must be accompanied by the following: certified copy of the South African identity document, date of certification should not be older than 3 months, passport or driver's license are not allowed. Valid proof of bank account, detailed bank statements showing income earned from sport competitions, events, activities, and fitness instruction services from March 2019 to February, from March 2019 onwards. If you are an athlete, coach, or technical support personnel, a signed and dated letter from your federation or organization confirming your activities is required. If you are a fitness instructor or practitioner, a letter signed and dated from an institution or organization you provided fitness instructor or practitioner services for, confirming your work. The maximum amount of relief available per applicant is set at 6,600 rands. The department and any of its agencies reserves the right to conduct verification, due diligence, and request additional information prior to providing relief. The department does not endorse the charging of fees for assistance in completing the application forms. Note that a list of all sport beneficiaries who benefited during the first wave will be posted on various department platforms. On arts, culture, and heritage relief, the relief will be available to individuals in the arts, culture, and heritage sector or cultural and creative industries. The categories to be provided with relief will apply only to 1. Performance and celebrations, 2. Music, 3. Festivals and events, 4. Books and publishing, 5. Heritage practitioners. Other practitioners will be covered through the partnership with the Department of Small Business and Development. A joint allocation of 23 million rands has been set aside by both departments to respond to a plea from the Cultural and Creative Industries Federation of South Africa for the craft design and visual arts sectors towards relief amid the COVID-19 pandemic. On the exclusions, applications who do not rely solely on the income earned from participating in arts, culture, and heritage activities, arts, culture, and heritage practitioners on fixed-term contracts may not apply. Companies, NPIs, NGOs, group applications, choirs, bands, etc., these will be catered for on the Presidential Employment Stimulus Program. Applicants who benefited in the first cycle of the department's relief fund or its provincial counterparts or any other government relief funding do not qualify. Support sectors such as catering, transport, and accommodation will not be catered for. Those who will be eligible for the relief are practitioners who rely solely on income generated from participating in sports, arts, culture, and heritage activities. As mentioned, practitioners who are dependent on gigs, who are freelancers and independent contractors. Applicants must provide proof of having earned income through arts, culture, and heritage activities. Practitioners will need to prove their applicability in the sector through provision of their profiles or portfolio of work, academic achievements in the sector, and or reference from other prominent practitioners who have been in the field at least for 10 years. Only one application form should be submitted by the applicants either via WhatsApp or through the website, as submitting two applications will lead to disqualification. So you use one of the two. All first wave beneficiaries' identity numbers are going to be loaded on both systems, as the system has been made in such a manner that should any of the first wave beneficiaries take a chance and submit an application, the system will then reject it. A list of those who are recommended to be paid and not yet processed will also be loaded onto the system so that upon their submissions, both BASA and National Arts Council systems will reject them. Departmental communication and information platforms will also publish names, as we have been doing all along, of all first wave recipients, serving as a reminder to those initially benefited to not take a chance and submit. The applicants, upon submitting the applications via WhatsApp on the number 087 153 1027, and I repeat 087 153 1027, will get an SMS acknowledging their applications. Should applicants seek clarity and information on their application status, they can call 0800 724 278. 0800 724 278 at no cost. This measure was introduced to further strengthen our communication with all sector applications. Language practitioners who can converse in more than 3 languages will be utilized and will be equipped with all required information. On the Solidarity Fund, the Solidarity Fund has made available 10,000 food or cash vouchers of 700 rand to the department amounting to 7 million rands. The department, working with sector organizations and provinces, to develop a list of practitioners who who will benefit from these vouchers. Each province will receive 1,000 vouchers, which can either be redeemed as cash or food. Beneficiaries will be identified as follows: 50% urban and 50% rural areas. The vouchers will be made available to the athletes, artists, freelancers, sports and arts legends. Those that are receiving social grants and UIF will be excluded from benefiting. Our database will be screened through the Department of Social Development to ensure that beneficiaries are not recipients of SASSA grant. The criteria will be what is called the missing middle, people from 14 to 35 and 36 to 59. Active and ex-professional artists, athletes, arts practitioners who are unemployed and have no alternative sources of income. Ex-professional athletes, arts practitioners should have been active for at least a period of 3 years. The criteria also covers technical staff such as coaches, referees, sound engineers, etc. And the voucher receipt process, in terms of the payment process, a list of beneficiaries will be submitted to the Solidarity Fund, who will verify the eligibility of beneficiaries through the SASSA system. An SMS will then be sent to the potential beneficiaries acknowledging receipt of the application. Once verified, the information will be sent to Standard Bank to process the payment, which can be redeemed at the ATM or their agents being SPAR, Checkers, et al. The department will then be notified, and once the process is finalized, the information will be deleted from their system as per POPI Act of 2002. The budget availability is a total, as we said last time, of 77 million rand is set aside for relief, of which 11.5 million rand has been ring-fenced for the contribution, as we said, of the partnership between the department and the Department of Small Business. If the entire amount is to be paid specifically towards beneficiaries and no other costs are considered, the allocation will cover a total of 11,666 practitioners. The relief will be paid at once-off payment of 6,600 instead of 3 staggered payment. This decision was made after consulting the implementing agencies, the National Arts Council and Business Arts South Africa. The approach cut on a lot of administrative processes and time consumption. The role of sector organizations is that we assert that they have to play a big role in raising awareness within the sector, enabling access to information, because they have the advantage of reaching remote and disadvantaged areas. The organizations will assist members with the application process and explore measures to prevent duplication and double dipping. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm pleased to officially announce that the second wave of COVID-19 Relief Fund for the sector is officially open as of the 18th of August 2020. And as you know, we did say that this time around we'll open it and give it a bit of time than we did last time. We are talking here of 14 days that people should be eligible to be applying. And the actual closing date is the 31st of August 2020. To apply, you simply log on and there's an address there. What is important here is that we continue to understand the plight of both the athletes, and the creatives in the sector. And we will do everything in our power to ensure that we soften the negative impact of COVID-19 to our people. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Minister Nathi Mthethwa, for that presentation, which I think we can all agree was very clear in terms of the opening of the second wave of the COVID-19 Relief Fund. And this has been a requirement or request and a plea, really, from the sectors. You pled, we heard you. And these are pleas that Minister has not taken lightly at all. And on that note, ladies and gentlemen, we will be opening up the floor for a Q&A session where journalists will be allowed to ask questions. And our panel here, consisting of the Minister, the DM, and the DG, will respond to those questions. Let's start with the calls. Anything on the line?
Thank you, Masichaba. We have Hloni from ENCA. Hloni, you can go with your question.
Okay, thanks. Minister, two questions from me. The first one, this morning, Chris Tanzani, the CSA president, stepped down. Just the minister's thoughts on that and when CSA will get their house in order, given all that's been happening over the past few weeks. And secondly, we saw over the weekend that a number of Springbok players and other rugby players within South Africa playing in England did not take the knee during a match. I know they wore the Rugby Against Racism t-shirts, but in terms of rugby and sport in this country being seen as something, a tool for social cohesion, what message does that send if they are perhaps not sensitive to the issues around the Black Lives Matter movement and what it means, the bigger picture for South Africa?
All right. Thank you very much. Those are two very important questions. I will, though, ask that we restrict the questions to one question per journalist, just for clarity, proficiency, and for time as well. Do we have another question on the line?
No, we don't.
All right. And do we have any questions on our WhatsApp line?
Thanks, Ms. Chaba. We have one question from Miriam Isa from Finwick. And the question is, what do the level 2 regulations mean for recreational sports? Are groups of people permitted to play games like soccer, volleyball, and water polo together? Thank you. That's what we have for now. Thanks.
Thank you very much for the question. Thank you. I'll hand over to the Minister to answer the questions.
Thank you very much, and thanks, Hloni, for the questions you asked. Well, Nenzani, as the president of Cricket South Africa, yes, he resigned this morning. In fact, I'm told he resigned with effect from the 15th of August. And this morning, then, we learned that. We further experienced it because it coincided with the meeting I've called with Cricket South Africa. Especially because you would recall, Hloni, that last week we started the process of meeting all the federations regarding issues of the scorecard of the eminent persons group for transformation. Cricket was one of them. We met them last week on that score. Today, I had asked to meet them, particularly on the issues which have been raised by ex-cricket players of systemic racism in cricket. And we've just finished a meeting with them 30 minutes ago. I explained to them that first and foremost, racism, if it's proven to be true, is not going to be tolerated by government. We are not going to be friendly to that kind of a situation. We want to go deeper into these issues because, as I explained to them, I did meet with the ex-players themselves who expressed how this covert racism manifests itself at cricket, who expressed how some of them, their dreams were shattered as young athletes at the hands of some of the administrators and others who are still around with allegations and counter allegations and so on. So we've said to Cricket South Africa, we want to, on these very key issues, whether it's unequal pay and so on for the players, whether it's the failure to bridge the gap on basis of culture, of race and so on, for us, we want to get a clear indication how are they going to deal with that. I've put it to them that they will have to explain how are they going to deal with the problem of having both in the field and in administration, that at the core of sport, of cricket, where you have 5 key people there, and these 5 people are all of them but one white males. And I said to them clearly, that has to change and change fast, because it cannot be argued that it's only white men who will be having monopoly of talent and capability and skills to lead cricket. These are some of the things we put to them. And we did say that we will be watching. For us, these 2 weeks from now would be a clear indication whether it's just lip service of what. And by the way, all the federations we have met, so far we've met about what, 12? All of them say that no, we're against racism. The irony about this is that we come from a past as a country, a past where racism was in the statute books, supported by racists. And you wonder today, where are those people who supported this? Because everybody says, no, we're against racism. So we don't buy what people say. We are eager to accelerate transformation. We are eager to want to see, indeed, people moving from what they say to implement what they need to. And we made it abundantly clear that if we have to enforce transformation in sport, we are going to do that. As government, we do have tools. That's not where we start. We say we've been talking for the past 26 years. And some of these talks are just fruitless talks. We have a conference fatigue. We've had commissions in sport. We've had summits. We've had conference, imbizo, everything. It is now time to act. And we want people to move. And if they don't move, we're going to help them to move with speed in transformation. On the issue of rugby and the players who did not kneel, the first thing we noted is that they were wearing the T-shirts which support Black Lives Matter movement. Upon seeing this, I interacted with Rugby South Africa, SARU, the rugby union, through its president. And I asked him to explain what is this and what is happening here. So that we are in the same wavelength. Remember, we've been together here as a country in Japan with some of the players. One thing which cannot be tolerated is when anybody is displaying racist behavior and showing racist attitude. We do not want to jump the gun on the specific matter of South African players in England who didn't kneel, but we did say we want to understand what is this and what is the position of SARU in this thing. And the president of SARU, of rugby, did say that they are going to be having their meeting and they will make their views known. I must underscore the point that there's been statements in the past coming from that quarter which seem to be identifying themselves with the Black Lives Matter movement. Black Lives Matter movement is important. It doesn't mean that, as others are counterposing this question with other races, the fact of the matter, the rot, the pain, this pernicious ideology of racism has been faced by black players here in South Africa. And if you want to say something before addressing this question, that as we build our non-racial society has to be on firm basis, that people have gone out of their way because racism is no longer in the statute books, but some are practicing racism covertly. And we are saying that we will hunt that down because we know the pain which is caused by this cancer called racism. And we are ready. We are ready to take whatever step to ensure that people toe the line and people who are racist are taught to embrace other people. And if that doesn't happen, government is going to come in handy in ensuring that people observe what the constitution of this country enjoins all of us to do. That non-racialism is not just something which is superficial. It has to come from the roots, where racism or act of racism manifests itself has to be dealt with firmly.
Thank you very much, Minister. I think the position is clear on Minister's sentiments and the stance of the Department of Sport, Arts and Culture, where human rights, issues of discrimination, racism, feminism are concerned. Do we have any more questions from the floor? Do we have any more questions from, are there callers? Do we have a WhatsApp message before we close? Yes, sir. Sure.
There's another question. I think the first two questions from Hloni. Well, we passed the stage of training. We are now at the stage where it's playing time. So people are playing, we have started, and those who have their plans ready would be given the opportunity and the permission to play. And some have been given already, but there will be no spectators. In all the matches, in all the events, there will be no spectators, even at this level, alert level 2, which we are starting now. So as we move forward, we'll explain when would be ready for spectators. This doesn't only deals with sport. It also involves the creatives, the arts, culture, heritage, that at the moment, as we said, cinemas and theaters and so on and so forth are open. And we have asked people to apply to that effect and come up with their plans, but those would be done within the health protocols. It means that it's people not more than 50 who will be allowed to participate in those events and activities. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Minister. Do we have any more questions from the floor? Are there messages, or are we all clear on what Minister has addressed in today's briefing? Yes, sir.
Yes,
Ma'am.
yeah, it's okay.
Yes, ma'am.
It's okay. We do have a call, a follow-up question from Hloni, again from ENCA. Hloni, you can go ahead.
Okay, just quickly, we've had Paralympic athletes ask us about when they are meant to return to training, so maybe clarity on that. And also, there's again stuff happening with SASCOC. When will those elections take place? Does the Minister have an idea? And also, when will the forensic report, CS's forensic report be released, now that Chris Nenzani, who was heading it quite a bit, is no longer there? Does the Minister have an update on that?
All right, thank you. Do we have another question? And then we can allow for DM and DG to respond to some of these questions.
Thanks. We have a couple of questions on WhatsApp. And we have Christian here from Network 24. And the question is, the Minister mentioned there will be an estimated 11,666 beneficiaries. And in his previous briefing, he stated that only 1,818 beneficiaries will be from the arts sector, while the remaining 9,848 will be from the sports sector. Is this still the case? And if so, why are artists getting the short end of the stick, and why more sports beneficiaries getting funding than artists? And we have Mark Lewis from Newsroom Africa said the ongoing investigations and at SASCOC continue to raise allegations around maladministration at the umbrella body. Have you met with the Olympic body to get clarity on the current disciplinary procedures?
All right, thank you
And we
very
have
much.
Marvin Charles from Cape Agus, who said the Minister, the Center of the Book Director, who has been involved in allegations of sexual harassment, was due to start again at the center after those allegations were dismissed. And what is the current status of the Center for the Book, and has the director started, or is the process underway to employ a new director? The last questions from me, Maschava, is this Nazir from Glow TV, who said, is any personal training allowed to be given at a shooting range or a gym and etc.? And also, is group shooting or competitive shooting allowed at indoor or outdoor shooting ranges? And Miriam Issa from Finwick is making follow-up on the question that was asked, which was, what do the level 2 regulations mean for recreational sports? Are groups of people permitted to play games like soccer, volleyball, and water polo together? Thank you, Mr.
Thank you very much, Ntate. I'd like to call on the Queen, Deputy Minister, Ms. Notawe Mafu, to come to the front, please. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Chapa. I'll take a few, and then Minister and DG will deal with those that I wouldn't deal with. I just want to start with the one that is saying, why are we having more sports the athletes than the creatives that must benefit this time around. You would remember that as we were briefing throughout this process, there's been a cry that the athletes in the previous wave were less than the creatives. So in our own mind, we were trying to give more access to the athletes this time around. But it doesn't mean that the creatives are not going to be looked. It's going to depend on the applications. We are just saying we would want to see more athletes this time around applying, because the last wave there were more creatives than the athletes. That's basically what we're trying to do. But it doesn't necessarily mean that if there are more applications from the creatives and less from the athletes, we will not process them because of what we have said. But the real issue here is that we are trying to make sure that we are seen as a Department of Sports, Arts and Culture in totality. The second question was the issue of the SASCOC. I think when Minister was doing the briefing at the beginning, he explained that he is meeting with all the federations to deal with the issue of the EPG report, but also at the end, he's then having a meeting with SASCOC to deal with all the issues. It became important that he doesn't have a meeting with SASCOC before he has a meeting with individual federations, all of them. And then at the end of that process of all the federations that he's meeting, then the meeting of SASCOC is taking place, because then when that meeting of SASCOC is taking place, it also means that he's got a fuller picture of what is happening, and he's going to be able to deal with all the issues in totality. And of course, that involves all other allegations that have been leveled against SASCOC, which in any case the department is dealing with them together with SASCOC at this point in time. But when Minister meets them, is mainly to look at the progress that has been made and what needs to be done to conclude on that. On the issue that is creative recreation allowed, you will remember what process is followed when President pronounces a level. Level 2 has been pronounced. Minister Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma was here to explain the process. What then happens after that? Individual ministers develops directives that pertains to the sector. So the department is busy with those directives within this week in consultation with the ministers that are responsible for the disaster management. And then within the end of this week, those directives and regulations pertaining to the sector will be pronounced and explained. And it will become clearer then what is allowed and what is not allowed. So maybe then give us a little bit of time, 2 days, 3 days, and then those directives are out there, so that when we talk about what is allowed and not is allowed, we are all able to refer to what is written, so that tomorrow you don't misquote us and said we said this and then the directives are saying this. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Deputy Minister Nokawe Mafu. Before we close, I will just check in with my colleagues to see if there are any further questions.
No, there are questions.
Oh yes, of course. My sincere apologies. My goodness, the address was so clear. I didn't imagine there would be questions. Ladies and gentlemen, my colleagues in the media, Director General Vusumu Zimkhize.
Thanks. Thanks very much, Minister, Deputy Minister. The question around the group shooting, I think it's covered by the answer that Deputy Minister provided. It is in relation to when the directions are published, we will outline unequivocally what it is that is permitted and what it is that is not permitted. So we will then provide that clarity. On the issue of center for the book, I think, as you have said, that if someone has been cleared, it's a question now of how does the institution manage that issue. Because if you are cleared of those allegations, then it means you were found possibly not guilty of any wrongdoing. So, but then what normally happens is a question of how to create stability within the institution so that it's able to progress and still fulfill its mandate. And I think that would be, we must allow that process then on what is the next move around that matter. And we can then engage with the Center for the Book on how they are handling the matter, and we will be able to take it from there. But at this stage, when you are cleared, it means in fact you are cleared of wrongdoings. So you are still within your rights in terms of assuming your responsibilities that had been suspended from being executed by yourself when you were still going through the process of investigation or a process of discipline. So let us then take it that we will take it from there once with the Center for the Book on what has been their approach on the matter now that it has been concluded. I think Deputy Minister did answer the issue of the SASCOC and the issue of the elections thereof. SASCOC, there is someone was appointed to facilitate the elections. They've submitted one of their first plans. So Minister, when he engages with them, we should be able to get clarity on that issue, but also the facilitator that was appointed to facilitate the issues, the elections in SASCOC. Once we engage with them, we should be able to then have a sense of status of preparations, as well as when are they likely to have those elections. But they have provided, at least the facilitator provided the roadmap. So we will communicate on that at the right time.
Thank you very much, DG Vusimkhize, for responding to those questions. With permission from the floor, I do believe that there are no more questions. I think we have covered everything. I see a hand up. Does that mean that we have one more question?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chaba. There's one more question, follow-up question from Hloni again from ENCA. You can go ahead, Hloni.
Hi, sorry. So the question around the resumption of training or play for Paralympic athletes wasn't answered. So please, can we have an answer about that? Because there's confusion from the parasport athletes about that. And then also, where does this leave the forensic investigation into Cricket South Africa now that the president, who is heading the whole thing up, has stepped down? And when will it be released?
All right. Thank you very much for the question, Hloni. I'll call on DG Mkhize to respond to that question. Excuse me? Before. Oh, there's one more question. All right. Let's get in another question before we ask the DG to come up to the front.
Miriam Issa again. It's reminding us again to answer the question that says, what do the level 2 regulations mean on recreational sports? And the question was, are groups of people permitted to play games like soccer, volleyball, and water pulled together? And also,
Hi, sorry.
Thank you.
Let's start with the one that I answered earlier. I just explained the issue that for the center for the book, what has been explained is that the individual concerned has been cleared of those allegations. Now what that means is that by virtue that you were taken through the process that is required when allegations are leveled at you, is that your matter must be investigated, not swept under carpet. Then the process is taken through if you have to be disciplined, and once that has happened and you have gone through the disciplinary process or the process of investigations and you are cleared of that, it is assumed that then you are innocent of those allegations. When that happens, you are then back to where you were prior your allegations that were leveled to you. You either had to be suspended or not suspended. So this means now that rightfully that person is innocent of those allegations and therefore then can be able to assume responsibilities that he was responsible for. However, as I indicated, the sender of the book then has a responsibility to make sure that you normalize the environment where this has happened, because then you know that there will be tensions, there will be fear sometimes, and there might be a number of consternations that those who might have accused the person might find themselves in a situation of fear of victimization. So it becomes important that that return is managed properly. But you cannot continue to persecute a person who has been cleared of allegations. The issue of recreational sport, as the Deputy Minister has explained, what we are saying is that we want, remember that when we were at level 3, we spoke about non-contact sport and contact sport, and there was no recreation. Now we're at level 2, and the focus of level 2 firstly was about the unleashing of opportunities for economic growth. However, also then to normalize South Africans' lives, it's important that we look at what is it that will either still put us at risk of spreading this. So when we are explaining to everyone in the country is that we will then deal with the regulations must be signed first. Once the regulations are signed, we then, as the minister will then of Sport, Arts and Culture, look at the implications of what regulations say. Then DM explained, you then come with directions that will regulate that which is permissible and that which is not permissible. The Deputy Minister then indicated, give us, Miriam, the opportunity to come back to you with directions, and we will explain what does it mean, because it will be in writing and there will be no conflict between regulations as the primary legislation governing this process and the directions that the Cabinet Minister responsible for the portfolio would have published. So we are just asking, as the Deputy Minister, give us a chance, and that clarity will be provided during the course of this week. The issue of the Olympics, as we indicated, remember, it's either you are any part of sport, whether it's contact sport now, whether it is non-contact sport, both training as well as playing is permissible, but within the guidelines that were just this afternoon outlined by the Minister of Culture, Minister Dlamini Zuma. So what it means then is that if they are permissible, but remember, you are not yet allowed to go out of the borders of the country. International events are still not allowed. So the skies are still closed in that regard. Therefore, then in terms of them training, in terms of them playing within the country with no spectators, I think Minister was very absolute that those are the guidelines. They are not excluding Paralympics. They are part of a sporting fraternity governed by the same rules.
Thank you very much, DG Vusim Kize. Unless if there are unanswered questions, I know there's a question around cricket that is pending but was answered. I feel like the question was answered. Yes? May we close? We can close. Okay. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much to our colleagues in the media. Thank you so much to the sectors. Thank you so much to everyone watching and everyone who has shown courage, which is something that is truly needed in this time. And on that note, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to close this session. We will issue out the minister's address on all of our official platforms. That's www.dac.gov.za and www.srsa.gov.za, as well as to the media. Watch all of our online social media platforms because we are progressive like that. And we thank you so much for your time. Good afternoon.